What's up everyone, welcome back. Patrick here. Moving on to the next video. We have to express this ratio 8:3 where we have these conditions over here. So getting in some practice with ratio algebra. So starting with part A, the smallest term is 1. Now with this particular ratio here, notice that we're given a larger term to a smaller term. So we have a larger to smaller. That's important to know. Sometimes it'll be smaller to larger. Could be the other way. In this case, it's larger to smaller. And it's important because you got to make sure that it's going to be in line. So notice here in part A, the smallest term is 1. So we know that this ratio that we're going to get, because it's larger to smaller and the smallest term is 1, we know the 1 is going to be on this side. Versus here in part B, it's saying the largest term is 1, so we know in this case the 1's going to be on this side. Right, so that's important, especially on a multiple choice test. You may get the same ratios, but they may be flipped and stuff. So you got to make sure you get the order, right? And it depends on what the ratio you're given is, in what order it's given in. It's larger to smaller in this case. So that's actually the first thing I do, just to not get confused, because after you get the value to put here or here, you can just start getting a little bit mixed up in terms of, because a lot of times the value you're going to see is going to be a fraction, and then you can start getting mixed up in terms of where to put what. So that's how I first start this. So you can do it for all of them. So the smaller term is 5, the smaller is on the right side in this case. The larger term is 7, the larger terms are on the left side. Smallest term is 3/4, so that's going to be over here. So we could actually set up the ratios beforehand. And then solving for the term that is missing is pretty easy. What we can do is just cross multiply, so we could change this to a fraction, 8/3, and then all we do is we plug in 1 and a variable. So smallest term is 1, smallest term in this case is in the denominator, and we will put the x there. 3 times x is 3x, 8 times 1 is 8, divide both sides by 3, x is 8/3. So that's the term that goes there. So that's the answer. And this could also be in decimals. So it could be 8/3 is what, 2.67? Or it could be 2.7 if you round to 1 decimal place. 2.67 to 1, 8/3 to 1, right? Larger to smaller. Now, if it was flipped, then this would be flipped as well. So make sure you get the orders right, because again, on a multiple choice test, they may give this answer, and then they may also give these same terms but flipped over. And that could be confusing, especially when you're dealing with fractions, or imagine there's fractions here, 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 and here, and they're all different. Right? So that can start getting confusing. So make sure that I would recommend personally setting up the ratios beforehand and then putting the term in at the end. Moving on to part B, largest term is 1. So the 1 now would go at the top, because that's where the largest term is, the 8. So we'd have 8x equals 3, x equals 3/8. So that would go over here. 3/8 doesn't simplify. And then in decimals, that would be 0.375. Right? Larger to smaller, like that. So that's the answer, the two potential answers for part B. And then part C, 5 is the smallest term, so that would go at the bottom in line with the 3. Cross multiply, 3x equals 40, x equals 40/3. That doesn't simplify, so that would go over there. 40/3 is, what, 13.33 to 5. Like that, 13 1/3. Right, so that's what the answer would be in decimals if we round it to 2 decimal places. Here, largest term is 7, so let's do the math over here. So 8/3. Largest term is 7, so 7 will go at the top. like that. So then we'd have 8x equals 21. X would end up equaling 21 over 8. So 21 over 8 would go over here. And then 21 over 8, that is what? 2.625. Right? 2 and 5/8. 5/8 is 0.625. So that's what the answer would be in decimals right there. And then notice in this one, it's a little bit more tricky, but it's still the exact same thing. It's a fraction. So what we can do, a couple of things we could do. We can change this to a decimal, 0.75, and then put 0.75 as the lowest term. Cross multiply. I'm going to actually just keep it as a fraction. Like that. And then the exact same thing. So we'd have 3x. Let's do this one in steps since we're dealing with a fraction. But it's the exact same thing. 8 times 3 over 4. Like that. So then we'd have 3x equals, what's 3 over 4 times 8? That would give us 6. That would be 6. Divide both sides by 3. X would be 2. So it would be 2 to 3 over 4, or 2 to 0.75. Okay, so all of these ratios here that I circled, it's the exact same as 8 to 3, the exact same proportions. It's just what was specified was either the smallest or the largest term.